we mean when we say Baroque music is we've borrowed the terms from art, from the visual arts. It means stuff that's very ornate, very elaborate, full of curlicues and in visual architectural terms, lots of fancy columns, lots of gold filigree. But it doesn't mean that this music is cold and sterile, because this music was written by real people, and it was designed to entertain them, to move them to laughter or to tears. Just because they wore fancy wigs and fancy clothes didn't mean that they were somehow made of straw. They still had beating hearts, and they still liked to laugh and cry just as we do. And this is the music that moved them in that way.
People back then weren't that different than we are today. I mean, we have the same feelings that they had back then. And this music moves people, and it's still moving people.
Music then, as now, was a part of everybody's life. It had to be performed by live musicians. You couldn't switch on a Baroque tape machine or a Baroque CD player. There was music to dance to. Everybody could dance in those days. So everybody knew the dances, and composers, the best composers, wrote dance music. Mozart was the court dance composer to the Emperor of Austria. That was his job. He had to write music for the Emperor to dance to.
Minuet is a dance, and if you were a teenager in the 18th century and you wanted to get to know people in the world who would help you move up in life, or you wanted to make contacts at court, you needed to know how to dance. And they felt that a dancer that was very nimble on their feet also had a quick mind. So that's why dance was very important. This is a diagram of a dance. It shows just one little phrase, and this is a bourrée d'Achille. It shows all these different patterns of movement. It shows all the detail of the arms and the legs. So if you're a musician and you play a minuet, which is a kind of dance, it's very helpful to know that it goes and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it can travel. And that sometimes in history it was very fast, and sometimes it was slow and stately.
Music is to some extent a universal language. There are people living all over the world to whom if you played a very sad piece of music will respond by feeling sad. If you play something with a very driving rhythm, they might start tapping their feet. But you couldn't talk to them because you don't speak the same language. Therefore, music feeds into, taps into the deepest emotions that human beings have.
It's a way to sort of understand people better, people in different places, different cultures, different times, but maybe different places in the world. And the more you can listen, you just get a taste of things that are incredible, that are just outside of our usual little sphere that we walk around in.
Baroque, classical, and romantic are terms, first of all, that were never used at the time. They just thought of it all as modern, because at one time, all this music was modern. Somebody had just written it, and indeed they only really liked playing modern music. They thought that old music was dreadful. It's only really in the last 50, 60 years that we've started to play old music.
Instead of playing this year's hits or music from not very long ago, you're playing music from a long time ago that was composed and performed and then forgotten. You sort of feel like you're a time-traveling explorer sometimes. And in Philharmonia we've had occasion to play all kinds of things that hadn't been heard in hundreds of years.
It's easy to limit ourselves, but I think that people's natural state is really one of expansion. And if you don't cut yourself off and say, oh, I don't think I like that, and just listen to everything, you're just going to be more. Yourself will be a bigger self.